that waithood is creative. And here I take issue with Dillon and Singerman, who came up with the idea of waithood. Because in a way, their idea of waithood was a static one. The idea of weight. They didn't deal with the weight. And waithood, they say, oh, okay, they're just sitting and crossing their arms and waiting for something to change. But my research has shown that there is no weight in that sense. It's a dynamic weight, because they are really being creative. Youths in waithood are using their agency and creativity to carve new spaces for themselves. The idea of desenrascar a vida, the idea of débrouiller, or the idea of trying to get by, they are becoming complex strategies for refashioning existing practices, but also for reinventing new ones. Desenrascar a vida allows them to creatively resolve immediate problems, but at the same time, it gives them the capacity to improvise. It provides them the flexibility and the ability to manipulate situations to their advantage. In a way, getting by practices are often located in this twilight zone between the licit and the illicit, something that is illegal or quasi-illegal. And they operate in the margins of formal socioeconomic activities. And this creates a relationship of tension and mistrust between these young people living in waithood and the formal institutions, the establishment. For example, street vendors are always chased by municipal police, and youth who try to migrate to other countries are met by the immigration, or those who do cross-border trading, they have also the police, the border police, also trying to make sure that goods are not passed. So there is a tension that is there between these young people and the establishment. There is a space of legitimate activity that is defined by the state, and the space of illegitimate activity, and they often fall in that illegitimate space. This relationship, one thing that is interesting also to note is that the work done by the Birmingham School in the 70s, the kind of Marxist analysis of subculture studies, is very interesting to understand, to help us understand what's going on here, what kinds of new subcultures, or what kinds of neo-tribes, as a French philosopher called them, what kinds of new spaces or youth spaces or subcultures are being created, and how do they manage them? Because they are also embedded in societies that are struggling themselves. So there is no backup of family, but they're there, they're surviving. And so this book is really trying to get their voices out and understand their daily lives. The last and fifth argument of this book is that waithood is also transformative. Young people are not the lost generation, as they appeared in some of the literature, and they are not apathetic to what's going on around them. They are aware of their condition and of the broader socio-economic and political environments that impact their lives. They are critical of bad governance. They are critical of widespread corruption and social inequalities. And that's why they're coming out to the streets to protest. For example, in 2008, February 2008 and September 2010, there were massive riots in Mozambique, started by young people against the price of transport, the price of cost of energy, against the high cost of living, basically. And they managed to block the government from keeping increasing those prices, and the government had to retract. In South Africa, regular strikes in the streets. in Senegal, there was this movement, the Yanamar. Yanamar means enough is enough in French. And Yanamar was a movement that started with young rappers who managed to rally a large group of youth against President Ouad's attempt to change the constitution to facilitate his re-election. And so they came out, they mobilized civil society, and they stopped Ouad from doing that. And of course we have the examples of the uprisings in Tunisia, Egypt, that led to the fall of the strong dictatorships there. But at the same time, these phenomena, youth coming out to the streets, youth taking up this challenge, is not just happening, as Joe mentioned, in Africa. And I remember I was writing, I was in the middle of writing this book in August 2011, when I heard the news of the London riots. And I heard the debates and the discussions, and I said, stop, wait a minute. I think there is more to this. This sounds like what I'm writing about Mozambique and Senegal and South Africa. And I was fortunate enough to also be living in New York, and that's when the Occupy Wall Street movement started. And I had a chance to go down to Zuccotti Park and talking to young people who were protesting there. And I started paying more attention to other things that had happened. And there was the Geração Arrasta in Lisbon, there were the Indignados in Spain, there were the demonstrations in Greece. And then I started looking and I said, are we talking about global waithood? Are we talking about a waithood generation that is rising up? And so in a way, these are events that are unfolding, and there are big question marks still. But there is no doubt that waithood is global. And the book, really, these 5 points of the book, which I'll summarize, that waithood is pervasive and is replacing adulthood in Africa, that waithood is beyond Africa, that waithood stems from bad social economic policies, that it is creative and it is transformative, are really things that are happening in our time. And this book concludes by suggesting that we are indeed living in the time of youth, as the title of the book says. Young people are the majority, and they are beginning to assert themselves and contest social and economic policies that exacerbate poverty, class inequalities, and uneven development. Will the waithood generation manage to impact the world in the same way as the 1968 generation in Europe and the US did? Well, who knows? The current youth social movements that we are witnessing are still unfolding, and it is still anyone's guess where they will lead. But there is no doubt that this generation is trying to redress some of the wrongs of contemporary society. And I thank you for listening.